as I was sitting down to relax and enjoy the coffee and the paper, a run comes up over the radio about a shooting at 6th and Broadway.
Welcome back to When the Call Hits Home. This is Jennifer, and I'm excited again to meet with my number one hero here, my dad. We enjoyed talking our last episode, and so I just wanted to continue and talk some more. So, you want to introduce yourself again? Who are you?
I'm still Jim Woosley, and also Jennifer's father.
Awesome. So, we want to talk a little bit about a critical incident and an experience you had as a first responder with a critical incident, and then just talk a little bit and have some conversations about that. So, would you mind sharing kind of, I don't want to say your first critical incident, but obviously maybe one of the, would you say the biggest one in your career?
Yeah, probably the biggest one. The one that stands out the most, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about just the story in terms of that experience.
What happened was it was a workplace incident where there was a mass shooting, and this girl employee went in with numerous weapons, and I'm not remembering now. They killed like 9 or 11. There was 18 or 19 wounded. And I'm not saying it's the first, but it was one of the first mass killings in the States. It was one of the first, and this was in the late 80s.
It was September 14th, 1989.
Okay.
So, yes, it was last. So tell us just about your day that day. What happened?
Well, at the time, I was a uniformed sergeant in the downtown Louisville district, and it was a routine day, and I went, like I started most of my days, and went to McDonald's to get my coffee and read the newspaper. And as I was sitting down to relax and enjoy the coffee and the paper, a run comes up over the radio about a shooting at 6th and Broadway. Well, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. So my immediate thought, well, it's a domestic shooting, and we don't have many shootings at that time of day, and it's a domestic shooting. So I get up to head out to my car to head that way, and there's another sergeant there, and he says he's going. So I'm thinking, well, there's no need for two sergeants there. We'll get in each other's way. So I go back to sit down to drink my coffee, and the run comes out, to kind of update on it. And it's obvious it's more than just a simple shooting, more than just a domestic shooting. So I'm about 6 or 7 blocks away. It's rush hour shortly after in the downtown area. So traffic's pretty heavy. And I might make my way there. And it's a building that I'd never been in before. It was at the part of the Courier Journal, which, if you're not familiar, that was or still is our local newspaper. And behind it was Standard Gravure, and Standard Gravure was the company in the building where they printed the paper. And it was attached to the newspaper building where the writers and editors and whatnot worked. So I head and get to the parking lot, and by this time there's several cars coming up, and I go open the trunk of my car. And I have a shotgun in the trunk of my car, and I get the shotgun out, and I see somebody else with a shotgun. Well, I said, well, we're going in an office building. We don't need 2 shotguns in close quarters. So I put the shotgun back, and I had a bulletproof vest in there. And I put that on kind of over my uniform, and I go to the scene. And like I said, we're surrounded, and I'm on the east side of the building, and the entrance is on the west side, the business entrance. So I go around to the east side, and the EMS pulls up. And I'm getting on the radio, and I said, where can the EMS get in? How can they get in? I said, how can they get in safely? Well, we don't get a response. So I go get the first EMS people, and we go in a little area, and the office area is on the second floor. It's a little unusual. We have an elevator that goes up to the second floor, and you get on the elevator, and you get off. That's where the reception and the offices are, which I didn't know at the time. So me and the 2 EMS people get in the elevator. And I remember getting in the elevator and smelling gun smoke, gunpowder. You can tell there's been shots fired, and it's got that scent to it. And we get up, and the door's coming up, and I get on the radio and I tell them, "Don't shoot. We're coming out of the elevator. I got EMS. Don't shoot." And we step out of the elevator, and we have to step over 2 bodies. They're laying right there in front of the elevator. 2 women have shot, and they're bleeding there. Well, there's 2 officers in there already. So me and EMS get off. The EMS goes to the one girl, lady, and they start fooling with her and working with her, and And I check around a little bit, and I go talk to this other girl, and I say talk when she's shot, and I'm trying to do little first aid and trying to secure us because we still got an active shooter going on. And I end up talking to her for, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 minutes. And the other lady that EMS worked on, she passed away. And they leave her, and there's other people shot on this floor. Plus, there's several floors. It's like I say, a printing press, and it's an industrial building, which is huge, and we know nothing about it as far as the layout. So I've stayed with this lady, and she says, man, she's hurting and all. She's really in pain. And I'm lying to her. I said, well, that's good, man. You're in pain, you're feeling things. That's a good sign. It's good to be hurting because that means, your senses are good. You're feeling pain that your body's reacting well. And it's coming out this deep, dark, real thick blood. And we're there, I don't know how long we're there, but it seems like eternity. And other people are coming in, they're chasing him through the building. And the guy's found out this later, he's got a duffel bag full of weapons and ammunition. And he's dragging it and shooting, dragging and going. He's going up and downstairs. And he gets to the point, in my opinion, the duffel bag got too heavy for him to carry. So he lays it down. He takes some weapons, goes in a break room, and he kills 2 or 3 in the break room and wounds 2 or 3 more. And the police, I say we, not me personally, but the police, we got between him and his duffel bag when he come back to get more weapons, ammunition. He saw that things wasn't going good, so he took his own life then. But in the meantime, I'm talking to this girl and holding her hand and say, you're doing good, you're doing great, everything's going to be all good. And I'm not a EMS. When I first started on the police department, for about a year, we were EMS. We drove station wagons, had 2-man cars, and we did that for about a year. And then they created EMS, and we got out of that business. And I was thankful for it. I love EMS because they do so much better job than we did, and I did specifically. But I'm talking to her and telling her things are going to be good, and getting to the point we don't want to move her because I know she's going to be paralyzed and all, but she's bleeding so bad. So we got to do something. We got to get her out of here. If we paralyze her, that's better than being dead. So I get another guy, and I said, get her feet. We're going to carry her out. We're right by the elevator. We get on the elevator, take her downstairs, and there's no ambulance. This chaos is going on. And the guy's coming by in a police car, and I stop him. And he's going to get the mayor. And I said, man, we need your car. And he said, I got to go get the mayor. I said, you go get the mayor, but we taking your car. And we commandeered his car, put her in the back seat, and got a driver, and he drove her to the hospital. And we go back in, and we do the same thing with a couple of others. We take them outside, put them in police cars, and take them to the hospital. By that time, we find out that the shooter he's taken his own life, like I said. So the situation is, we did a thorough little search to make sure he was by himself and all, and we're kind of relieved. I know we're sitting up there in this same area, this reception area, which then we're patting herself on the back and said, wow, and all. And we hear a commotion in the back, and some guy comes out of the back. And this is an hour later. He's been hiding back there for an hour, afraid to come out. I don't know, we scared him, but I was in uniform. Now he come out. I said, come on, man, I'll walk you out. I took him outside, and he was, as you can imagine, shaken, upset, but safe. That's pretty much the events of that day.
So after that happens, you said they're trying to get the mayor, so I'm assuming they did like a press conference because that was, I'm sure, big news.
Yeah. Like I said, it was one of the first in the country. We had press conference. We had at that time they had the news trucks. Mm-hmm. I guess now they use just the cameras. They don't need the big trucks, but I guess they still got the trucks. But they had the news trucks, and we had the news trucks out there. The news trucks were from Cincinnati, St. Louis, and everybody. It was a big item at the time. They all showed up in the next 2 to 3 hours. Had their poles up and doing live shots.
So then what happens after this intense morning?
Well, there was as you can imagine, a sense of shock and sadness and just overcome the community. The whole community was in a state of mourning. One thing I remember, the next day, I'm worried about we paralyzed this girl because she had a wound and injury and all, and me and a couple of other guys. It was the next day or 2 days later. We went to the hospital, several of us, and it was a couple of days because and talked to doctors, and the doctor said that they took the bullet took a piece out of a spine the size of a golf ball. She was paralyzed. There's nothing we did.
Well, that's good.
Well, it wasn't good, but it made you feel a little bit better that we didn't cause more damage.
I want to be respectful because I don't want to use people's names, but can you say like a little bit of her backstory that you know?
First of all, it was her first day back at work. She'd been off for like 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe a month, I don't remember, for maternity leave. Mm-hmm. She had a new son who was, a month old, 2 months old at the time. So she was just back to work for maternity leave. And her dad told me, like I said, the news media was there, and it was a picture of me in the paper. And I'm sorry, but
take your time.
There's a picture of me in the paper. And the day the paper come out, her dad told me she saw me in the paper. Sorry.
Okay.
And she points to me and said, "That's my policeman." But we become friends. Oh, we went to her house and I saw her kids, and
she came to, I think we hosted something and she came to her house as well.
Yeah. She came to our house.
And she was a mom again.
She had
more kids.
Later, she had a daughter. And I've not seen her for a few years, but last I know, as far as I know, she had 2 good kids and everything as well.
But something like that's impactful.
It is, but it is.
Well, I think it's okay that you shed some tears over that. It's a pretty scary day and made an impact, obviously, on somebody's life. But we brought this up to talk a little bit about our experience and, to say this happened in 1989 and then to think about it just a couple years down the road here. I'm sure if 1989 feels like yesterday for me, I know it feels really soon for you as well. But I think you mentioned that they did offer some kind of, critical incident, conversations. The police department, was it the police department?
Yeah.
That? Can you talk a little bit about what that is?
They did this kind of, what we're calling it,
critical incident.
Critical incidents was new, but they made us go talk to some people. And we were all big, tough, bad policemen. Nobody wanted to do that. I didn't want to do that. But they made us go see them. And we did in a group, and my group was 10 or 12. And it was really good. The guy that run it was really good. It was helpful. I had a change of attitude over it. They can do some good, and it's, they ought to encourage it.
What was helpful about it?
Well, you saw that you wasn't the only one that had these thoughts or feelings or beliefs, and it was okay to have sympathy and to feel, I don't say feel guilty, but feel like you maybe hadn't done enough, but everybody had done their best, and it changed my attitude towards stress issues.
Does that feel pretty true sometimes as a police officer that there's not enough, you should have done more?
In situations,
just overall,
I think we do. We might not do the right thing, but we do what we think's right at the time.
Well, I guess I'm thinking more of like when you go home and did I do enough? Did I paralyze this person?
Could I second guess yourself?
So not, could I have done more?
There's I guess we always second guess ourselves, and hindsight's 20/20. But I think that we're trained pretty well. We use our training to the best of our ability most of the time, I feel like.
Well, I definitely feel as, getting to work, the honor of getting to work with first responders in a mental health capacity. I mean, definitely it shows up a lot that I didn't do enough. That's a big theme, I think, for people. So I appreciate you saying that. I mean, I have to say that's pretty cutting edge in 1989 to have I imagine this is like psychologist that comes and talks to you guys as a group. That's pretty cutting edge.
Like I said, we were opposed to it. I ain't going, and made us go, and I'm glad they did. And and it didn't hurt anybody. And I think it helped about everybody.
Yeah. So that actually happened to be your wife's birthday that day. Did you'd already got her a present? So you were covered there, right?
I did call her. This was pre-cell phones off. So I was in the office building and there was a phone there and all the news was there. And I called her and said, I can't talk right now. There's a lot of stuff going on, but I'm okay. And said, you'll see the news to know what's going on, but I'm okay.
Yeah, I think she told me about that, and she said I was clueless. I didn't know what he was talking about until she stepped aside and saw. And I think it was a really impactful. I think her getting to be married to somebody that saved somebody's life. I think that meant a lot to her for you. But I think the reason I wanted to bring this up on the podcast because in 1989 I was in first grade. And I don't think we recognized this until I was much older, but I rode the school bus to school. And in 1989, when I'm riding the school bus to school, all buses have radios. And I am noticing in the morning on the way to school that the bus driver seems to be on the radio a lot more than, they're usually just, I got these stinking kids and I'm breaking them in. They're not really talking on the radio too much. But there was just so much chatter on the radio that I don't know, it just, again, as a first grader, I just noticed it. Like, I was just like, well, that's interesting. But, as a first grader, you have the attention of a goldfish. So, on to when is recess. And so I think, it's not like you and mom sat down and said this happened. I do remember, obviously, I hate to use the word victim, the survivor came to our home. And so I kind of understood she was in a wheelchair and a little bit more of the story then. And I think I was probably like in fifth grade. And you shared that story with me. Like I sat down at McDonald's and, this is what happened. And a little bit about, I think, unfortunately, sometimes I guess some good in a tragedy is that the city realized they did not have enough ambulance. And so we got more ambulance in the city because there wasn't enough to respond to a crisis like that. So, I just think we had that conversation. But I don't know, as a first responder, as a police officer, and having a day like that, like, how are you supposed to go home to your family?
I don't know. I don't know. Well, you need to talk to professionals, which they were smart enough to let us do. And you've got to go on. Time heals wounds, I guess, but that left a deep scar. And it's we're survived it, and most of the victims survived it. But you got to go on.
Yeah, the sad news is that that's not the last mass shooting there ever was. So that's a sad thing. But at the same time, I think to say, okay, those things happen and our family life does go on, and how to make sense of that when you had to see something horrific like that.
One little humorous sidebar, if I may add, your mind plays funny tricks on you. Mm-hmm. And right before that happened, me and your mother had taken our first trip to Europe, and we spent a month in Europe and had a great trip. And we'd been to Germany and half a dozen countries, and just had a great trip. We come back and been to work less than 2 weeks, and I'm talking about getting on the elevator and you're smelling gunpowder and you're hearing shots and all, and your mind plays tricks on you. And I'm thinking, man, I'm glad I took that trip. And if I get killed here, I won't have to pay for it. I won't have to pay that credit card off. So your mind plays.
Things that you have to do to survive. Yeah. Things that you have to do to survive. Well, I appreciate your levity because I'll be honest with you. Ashley and I talk a lot about resiliency, and I will say a very resilient trait that you have is your sense of humor. That's definitely something that you've passed to your children as well. We probably would be canceled because it's very inappropriate, but it's still, I think, a good sense of humor is helpful in those kind of situations. For sure. But I think it was interesting for us to, again, in the late 1900s, in 1989, to kind of recognize that, wow, if I'm in first grade and I sense that there's something off, how do families do it nowadays when there's social media, when there's so much access to information and maybe what our first responders are responding to?
I don't know. I'm not sure all progress is good.
Well, I mean, I feel like the cat's out of the bag a little bit
Yeah.
with it, but
Yeah, we can't go back, but
mhm.
I don't have to accept all of it.
Well, I mean, not to be too obnoxious and pat ourselves on the back, but I mean, we did eventually have a conversation about it that led to like, oh, I can remember that in first
Yeah.
grade. And I think I remember your response to that being really surprised that I had knew something was up that day. But I think that comes back to communication, like being able to communicate with your kiddos age appropriate. Like, I don't think in first grade I needed to know that you had to step over
Yeah.
bodies. Like, that's horrible. I don't need to know that. And I think it's important when I talk to my first responder families, you know, the one thing that we can always communicate with our kids is that we'll do whatever we need to do to be home. You know, and
Yeah.
I can't promise that I'll always be safe, but I will promise that I'll do whatever I can do to be home. And so I think that's an important conversation to have with your kids. And, you know, we've talked a little bit before about front loading, like the more you can have those conversations ahead of time, the more important that could be.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I get all my brains and smart points from you. Is that what you're telling me?
That's
Uh-uh.
I thought it was obvious.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being willing to come back to the show and talk a little bit. I know that wasn't obviously an easy topic. I mean, it's definitely something that's been a part of our lives for a long time. And being able to share that with our when the call hits home family, I appreciate you being willing to do that. That takes some courage.
I'm not sure that's the right word, but I don't mind talking about it, and I'm not sure it helps anybody, but if it does help somebody, I'm proud to talk about it.
Well, again, I appreciate that. Again, in 1989, there was some talk about mental health. That's impressive. And you're such a trendsetter and so
Yeah.
on cutting edge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say, like the person that you saved, you're my police officer too. I love you and you're my hero. So again, Ashley always says this the best, but you guys know if you need anything when the call hits home, we're here for you.